Hi, this is James Page in Madrid at the FTTH Council Europe meeting, and I'm really pleased to say I've been joined by Kamila Kloc, who is the Acting Director Connectivity at DG Connect. Kamila, thank you for coming and talk to us. European Commission has its path to a digital decade roadmap. Perhaps you could tell us a bit more about it and some of the initiatives that sit underneath it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, indeed, we adopted very ambitious digital decade communication and then policy program, which basically has several targets concentrating on several aspects which are important for digital, but very much also focusing on connectivity among these targets. And for connectivity, we established a target that by 2030, all households, all businesses in the EU should be covered by fiber to the home, fiber to the premises. And this target is extremely important for us. We also see the impact of connectivity on everybody's life. So we are really aiming to monitor what is the situation in each of the member states, what is the situation in the EU, and try to help to achieve these targets. The current numbers, but we are also looking into new numbers, which we'll publish also soon, but the current available numbers are 56% in the EU are covered by fiber to the home, according to what we see. That's the numbers from last year, July 2022. We are still cracking the numbers for the new report, which will be issued in mid-June, but the figures increased a bit, but not considerably. Also, what is worth to mention, there are significant differences between the member states, between the countries, not to mention also differences locally between rural and urban areas. One of the examples, which is quite striking, is, for example, in Romania, the coverage currently is very high. I think it's around 80%, while for example, Romania is 20%. And this is what I am talking average across the country, not making a difference between rural and urban areas, which of course are different. We always see that urban areas are more covered and households are more connected and businesses than in rural areas. So still a lot of things to do. We are also looking into how much investment will be needed to meet these targets. Here I'm talking both about the fixed targets for fiber, but also other target that we have in the policy program, which is concerning 5G. Here the estimates that we have currently are 178 billion, which is needed in terms of investments to reach these targets by 2030. So we are talking about significant investments that are needed. What we are doing to make this happen on the Commission side, in February this year, we proposed a package of measures very much concentrating on issue of access to ducts and making sure that the ducts are available and that the permit, for example, issuing is very much streamlined. So the two initiatives I'm talking about, one is Gigabit Infrastructure Act, which is focusing on the civic engineering infrastructure, on access to ducts, on making sure that there is fair access to ducts, that the permits are streamlined, that there is red tape that is cut to make sure that the ducts can be available for all that need them, but also to make sure that they are built very quickly. The ducts are absolutely essential. Also, the cost of ducts is the highest cost of the network. We are talking about 70%. So making sure that these assets are utilized and used efficiently is very important. So we are now in negotiations with the Parliament and the Council to make sure that this Gigabit Infrastructure Act is in place as quickly as possible within the mandate of the Commission, we hope, which means that we hope to conclude negotiations within 1 year. The second initiative that we adopted in February, but it's still under discussion and we are waiting for opinion from regulators, from BEREC, is access recommendation, gigabit recommendation, which is also focusing on several elements that regulators need to do in order to prescribe remedies of access to the networks of the incumbents. I'm talking here about the companies with significant market power. And here also the focus of this recommendation is on access to civil engineering, again access to ducts, where we think that the regulators in first place, when they are regulating access to networks, they should focus on regulating access to ducts, and that in many of the cases should be sufficient remedy, and there will not be necessary need to regulate in all cases wholesale prices of access. And the second element, which is also very important in this recommendation, is the fact that we are trying to incentivize migration from copper to fiber, also through regulatory instruments. And there are also many other elements in this recommendation, but focusing on the targets, I think these are the most important.
Okay, fantastic. So a few things to unpack, and I'd love to come on and talk about some of the regulatory impact in different member countries, and particularly thinking about investment and how things are different in there. But thinking about those most recent initiatives and the infrastructure side of it particularly. So for operators, having that access to ducts is something you think will significantly enhance their ability to deploy faster?
Yes, absolutely. We think that indeed the access to ducts should be the primary remedy that is prescribed by regulators. Of course, the situation differs in member states. There are countries like Spain, when the network of ducts is very impressive. There are countries which are not based so much on ducts, like the country that I live now in, Belgium. So we cannot prescribe one remedy for everyone. That's why what we are issuing is a guidance for the regulators, but it would be assessment by them of the national circumstances or even regional circumstances, because what we also see more and more that the situation, competitive situation in different countries differs not only at the level of the national level, but it's also sometimes should be assessed locally, because there are such a big differences between competition, infrastructure competition in different regions. There are new players that are entering the market. Many of the companies that are present here are the very successful companies that are sometimes taking over the very strong position in certain regions or certain countries from the incumbent. So the landscape is very much different now. So the regulators need to always take it into account and not only look at the markets nationally, but sometimes go very deeply locally. We have examples from Denmark where regulators decided to look at the regions according to the electricity utilities networks, because in Denmark that was the way to develop competition. They were developing and deploying fiber. So it's completely different landscape, and the role of regulators to assess the situation nationally but also regionally is extremely important.
Yes, agree, and I think it'd be good to get your view on whether you think the new initiatives are going to be flexible enough to allow that, because I think everybody's behind the main aim, but of course, as you said, it's different within member countries, and the take-up's different, and the rollout target's different. Are these things flexible enough to let each of the individual countries, and even down to regional level, still deliver, but comply with the initiatives as well?
Yes, I think so. In case of the Gigabit Infrastructure Act, what we are proposing is regulation, so indeed it's directly applicable to the member states, but the measures that are there are of general nature. As I said, it's about streamlining of issuing of the permits. It's very much allowing for the access to the ducts and fair access to the ducts, coordination of works, for example. These are measures that are needed everywhere, irrespective of the development of the ducts. Ducts are absolutely necessary everywhere. On the recommendation, Gigabit recommendation, here we give guidance to the national regulatory authorities. And it's decision of the regulators how they will use it. They are, of course, bound by the provisions of our framework, Electronic Communications Code, which also insist on the access to ducts as a first remedy to be considered by regulators, but they have flexibility in the way they will implement it, and they will have to take into account and assess the national circumstances. The Commission on its side, the measures that regulators are taking in this field, either to regulate markets and how to regulate markets, are notified to the Commission, so we always look into them in order to ensure harmonization effect and make sure that they are proportionate and they are supporting competition and supporting investments. Still, the main the main decision, the analysis is done, of course, by regulators, and we are assessing them from the point of view of the framework that we are all trying to implement successfully.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to explain that to us. I'm sure everybody is pushing towards the same goal, so it's really important those frameworks and regulations are in place. So thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us.
Thank you very much for talking with me. Thanks a lot.